Let's talk about the definition of luxury today. I always ask this question because, and every year it gets a little more nuanced compared to what luxury was in the past. And what will it be in the future? So, Rick, I mean, take us off there.
Yeah, well, really what's changed more than anything else is our guest. And just to tell you what it was in the past, and the contrast was when I started touring back in the 1970s, our guests showed up to board our motor coaches wearing jackets and ties and their Sunday best, and they looked like they were ready to go to church. And they did that every day, and I think it was that way with Cunard too, right? Back in those days. And they'd get out to tour after having a really nice full-course a la carte breakfast and fill their bellies. And then we would ride them and drive them and tell them stories and show them the sights all the way to lunch. And at lunch, they would sit down and have another full 3-course a la carte lunch. After lunch, they'd get back on the motor coach and rest up for dinner. And we spent probably an average of 5 to 6 hours in dining rooms. But if we skipped a meal, they were not happy. It's what they wanted. And it was our goal to get them as close to the attraction as possible, to minimize the walking, because if they had to walk 2 blocks, they weren't very happy either. So luxury was being driven, being taken, being shown, and being fed. Today's traveler is much different today. By contrast, we've got people jumping in and out of Navin Zodiac rafts. We've got grandmas down in Costa Rica that are zip lining, horseback riding, rafting down rivers with their grandchildren.
Hanging from the side of cliffs.
Taking surf lessons in Hawaii. And rather than having that a la carte lunch, they'd rather be taking a walking tour through a marketplace and sampling things along the way, or taking a cooking class and cooking themselves. And so they're very, very eager to sacrifice some of that sitting and being taken for engaging activities that they can participate in. But they still want their fine dining, but it's not every night.
No.
So you've got to have those Michelin fine dining restaurants because dining is part of the experience, but not every day, all the time. And the way they're dressed today is not suits and ties. They look like they're ready to go to the gym.
I thought we were in suits and ties on that mountain together. I don't know, but anyway.
Big difference.
Shannon, what is your definition of luxury today, and how is that changing, or will it change?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at hospitality, hospitality used to set the bar for luxury. It used to define what luxury was. You would go to a luxury hotel and, all the best fixtures and all the best technology, and it was really setting the bar for luxury. And I think what has changed drastically is, in fact, that balance of power has shifted. And the consumers now, the guests, are defining what luxury is to them. And this is where I think the biggest change has come, which is luxury is extremely personal. What's luxury to me may not be luxury to Albert or Rick. And I think in hospitality and everything we do, I actually think that's the hardest trend from a service delivery perspective is if luxury is so personal, how do you deliver that? How do you know that? And so, obviously becoming much more customer-centric, leveraging what's available in terms of data and technology to empower that highly personalized service, I think is where we're moving in hospitality, and I would say overall in travel as well. But for me, luxury is extremely personal, and personally, luxury for me is extremely laid back.
There you go. Some people are laid back, some people are active. Albert.
Yeah, to sort of tie into what Shannon said, truly, luxury is very personal. I know we've heard it before, it could be very cliche, but truly that's what it is, right? As the consumer, as the traveler, as the advisor, we all get more and more savvy in terms of what our customers are looking for, or ourselves. That is what it is. A lot of it is also about transformation. How can the experience, the luxury experience, transform the individual?
There's that word, transform, yeah.
Right, because again, we don't mind, and we've been saying this at Virtuoso, is that the reason why we've evolved the title from travel agent to advisor is because the advisors are actually consulting their clients to get back on time, right? The one thing they can't get back is time, and that's the one biggest investment that they should be investing to the future. That's where we all in this room come in together to be able to help tell that story and help our customers, I guess you might say, define what they're looking for and listen to what they're looking for in the luxury space.
And Lia, you are actively talking with your clients all the time. How are they defining luxury to you, and how are you fulfilling those requests?
So I had a different story
Okay.
in my head to answer that question, so now you threw me off a
Okay,
little bit.
no,
But,
go with what you want.
No, I'll answer that question too, but I think it's important. I mean, I love what Shannon said because it's so true, but I mean, this is actually why myself and my husband started our company almost 14 years ago. We were actually going on a trip to Argentina planned by a travel agent, a very good one. My family had used them for quite a while. And they booked us this incredible trip. We were staying in Ritz-Carltons. We were staying in a beautiful Marriott, places that were a little bit off the beaten path even at that point, though, but had these hotels. And once we got to these locations, we quickly figured out this is not where we want to be. Like, this is not where we should be. We want to be at the little small hotel that's right on the beach when you walk out and your feet are in the sand. And we did not want the big restaurants that everyone had talked about. We wanted the little local mom and pop places that not only welcomed us into the back kitchen, but explained to us about the change in the area and where the food came from and how their family had been in this for generations. And we came back. We actually took the trip thinking we were going to move to Argentina, and that didn't happen, luckily. But came back and we said, I mean, there's got to be a company out there that caters to what people want, not what you think they want. And even myself and my husband at the time, you know, I wanted to go to the shishi beautiful restaurant, but he wanted the local under the radar, you know, restaurant. So we would switch off and on. But we quickly were like, how does someone just pigeonhole you into places because of maybe how much money you can spend or your age or what you, you know, have done in the past? I always say that every trip is different. Even if you worked with a client for years, every trip that they'll take is different. You know, where they'll stay with their family versus where they'll stay with their wife on a couple's trip versus where they'll stay on a guy's getaway. So you can't ever make any sort of pre-assumptions on what they would like. You have to dig deeper. You have to understand what their focus is on that trip and make sure you're pairing them up with the best option, it be quote unquote luxury with nice sheets, or maybe the luxury is your feet in the sand. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's where luxury comes in.
Again, personalization, customization.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. But also I think with clients these days, especially our clients, sometimes they're overwhelmed. You know, Instagram is a great technique, a great vehicle for us, a great vehicle in general. But you know, and the internet and all these companies out there, content is king, content, newsletters, blogs, this, people are overwhelmed by it. So I think that for us, really focusing and narrowing down what is going to be the best options for them and why, and surprising and delighting them and pushing them into places that they wouldn't necessarily think of in those locations.
But that's your job, is to let them know the options and everything else beyond that. So,
correct, but I think the younger, quote unquote, younger clientele, and I think we started out with the quote unquote younger clientele, but that's evolved. I say it's not a demographic anymore, it's a psychographic. You don't have to be, 25 years old to want to stay in a boutique hotel. So I think that the world of luxury and luxury hotels and what that means has just opened up dramatically.
Well, there's a lot more product in the market too, and everything.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. And Navin, you've been in luxury travel all your life in different forms, and before Ponant, and Rick mentioned you were at Cunard, so which we used to be, that would be the epitome of old scale luxury, and now you're at an luxury expedition line. It's sort of a different kind of thing, right?
Indeed, and I think the two words that come to mind, a lot's been said, and I think just to summarize, luxury is moved from the tangible to the intangible. And the reason it's moved is, yes, the consumers changed, but it's also changed because we have adapted to providing a lot of choice to consumers in the world of tangibles. Every town has a celebrity chef in this country. Every person has access to all sorts of privilege that they can buy quite readily and easily. But there are two things that come to mind which I think will set the trend for luxury, certainly in the next year to 2 or 3 more years. And the first of those is what Albert touched upon, and that is freezing time for people, helping them get off the grid so they can connect with themselves. That's why they travel. The second is a tremendous trend that we are seeing in our category, in our company, and that is the thirst for spontaneity. People do want that adventure, just as Albert experienced when the Pope entered that weeping room. I forgot to ask, did he or did he not? He did, see?
Well, that was arranged by the tour operator, I think. You know, he said, you know, your Eminence, you need to be there at 10 for the tour group,
So,
right?
certainly expeditions afford adventure and spontaneity in droves, but you can also experience it when you go to classical destinations in many different ways. And the more of that you get, the more transcendental that experience becomes, and it stays with us forever as a memory and as a connection.
And Becky, we'll go to you. And you've been in the luxury field for a long time. How has luxury changed, and and actually even more, where is it going?
Well, I think it's more about the human interaction, you know, feeling part of a destination. I know that's been talked about a lot, but, you know, I think anyone who goes to Africa, yeah, the animals are great, but when you go into a small village and you interact with the children of that village, or you go to a school and you see, you know, how hard it is for them to even get books. I mean, those are the impressions that people are leaving with, and it makes them want to go back and help. So I think it's really about the human interaction, whether it's a volunteer program while they're traveling. You know, families are taking their children out of school and traveling for months on end because they see, you know, they see travel as an education, and I think that's very luxurious too for the people who can afford to do that. But wow, what an impression that's going to make on the next generation.
It's the interactions you have with individuals
Exactly.
on the road. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, you're right. I mean, I went on a safari a couple of years ago, and by the fifth day, and we like, see a herd of elephants. Elephants. All right,
Yeah.
you know, we see those all the time now. Although then we saw zebra at the last day, and one of the zebra started bleeding like crazy. I never knew they made a sound, and they were trying to get out from the croc that was down by the
yeah.
river. So suddenly the zebras became more interesting. So that was the experience of the
Yes.
safari, and you can always have those and those kind of things. But
That's right.
you know, you're right.